Good evening. And thank you guys for coming. It's such a beautiful day out there, right? And I told Phil, I said, we've got competition today, but I very much appreciate people coming, and I think you'll be glad that you have. So this event is made possible by the generosity of the Andrews family. I'm very thankful for that. And in collaboration with the minor in spiritual formation. And I don't know too much what to say about it other than it's really good and going very well. And if you have questions, I'd be happy to help with that. And then the other kind of co-sponsoring group would be the Masters in Spiritual Formation. And so I've asked Eric if he might say a couple brief words about the Masters program.
Sorry, I got so trapped over here. My name is Eric Magnuson. I am a member of the theology department here, and I direct our master's program in spiritual formation and leadership. We are a primarily online program, so you don't see a whole bunch of strange seminarians wandering around campus here. You just see strange faculty members like Robert Morgeville and myself. But we are in our 10th year as a graduate program here at SAU. We're a 36-hour Master of Arts degree that is about 75% online, and the other 3 courses are in face-to-face intensive residencies. Because we believe that the spiritual life is communal, our students walk through the entire 2 years of the program with the same cohort of people. So you are deepening your relationship with these folks at the same time as you are diving deeply into academic information and personal transformation of the spiritual life. But also because we believe that the spiritual life is not just a soul or intellectual game, but is also deeply embodied, we have our residencies, where the members of your cohort that you are with online for 75% of your work come together face to face, and it transforms learning. All of a sudden, the next time you're in an online class together, you are able to see the person's facial expressions or hear their inflection, even though you're reading opposed. For me, my experience with MSFL started when my wife was a student. I watched the transformation that the program had on her. And so I firmly believed in the work that God was doing through SAU, through the MSFL program, through its faculty, and through students long before I was ever officially associated with the school. So it's a gift to be able to be here, to direct that program, and to get to partner with folks like Nathan in events like this and other things that we get to do. And if you've got any questions about the MSFL as a possible direction for your future, I'd love to chat with you. So feel free to catch me tonight or any other time you see me on campus.
Thanks, Eric. So the way we'll structure this is Phil's going to come, give a little talk, and then the two of us will have a conversation, see if we can't tease out some of the ideas, and then we'll open it up to some question and answer if time allows for that. So there's much to say about Phil. He's very earthy, grounded person, and not too well about talking himself up. So let me see if I can't do it a little bit for him. He's written 2 books that I actually highly recommend. And the bookstore has them, and they'll be open until 6. If you get one, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to sign it for you. But his first book he wrote, Running on Empty, Contemplative Spirituality for Overachievers, which has good stuff in here, particularly for many of you who could relate to that overachieving. The second one, Breaking the Rules, Trading Performance for Intimacy with God. 2 really sharp books. Phil has done speaking and teaching all around the world, really, for many years. And when I talk with him, occasionally he'll very casually mention a place he's been, and I'm always impressed that many of the different things he's gotten to do with that. here's the thing I guess I want to say about Phil is who he is as a human being. He listens. He listens really well. And I think he's done this for many, many years, practicing the ministry of availability and his presence to hundreds of people all through the years. Really, I think informs what we'll hear him talk about. This is very lived out. At any rate, there's Phil. Is that good? Is that good? Okay. Good luck. So,
oh boy, you just never know what you're going to get when someone introduces you. There. I'm so glad to be here. We were having something, lunch, breakfast. We were eating. I know that. And I'm just, my grandmother, my mama, I call her. She's been on my mind here today. She used to tell me, you be careful the company you keep. And then she'd explain it. You'll be like them. They'll rub off on you. And I think she would be really thrilled that I'm here. Because I think she would say, yeah, let them rub off on you. You're a good bunch. I come from the South. Probably couldn't tell from my accent or anything, but I'll say y'all a few times before I finish. And we kind of pride ourselves, or maybe be arrogant ourselves with hospitality. You know, we think we're good at that, but we're no better than y'all or just about anywhere I've ever been. Folks are nice, and so I hope you'll say that about me. My mama sure would appreciate it. We're talking together, okay? I'm going to steal the show here for a few minutes, but I'm going to be quick to try and give it to you so that we can have a dialogue. We're going to talk about becoming ourselves, our true self, the person God had in mind when we were created. And so I want us to lay a foundation to start with here. I want to talk about the goal of spiritual formation. What's the end game when we're talking about the spiritual journey? Is it not the transformation of ourself? Becoming who we really are? But the big question that begs for an answer is, how does that happen? What does that require? What's necessary? I ask that question. I'll ask you. What do you think is important? What would you even say is necessary? Be coming up with your answer. I've asked lots of folks, and oftentimes people immediately begin to talk about God. Finding God, knowing God, understanding God, loving God, serving God. Some would include church, perhaps relationships with other followers of Jesus. However expressed, it seems most folks wind up talking about God. And the question is about us. How do we become our true self? And I understand why God becomes the reference point. But what's sometimes puzzling to me is why don't we ever say anything about ourselves? It seems to often just have to do with God. To say knowing God is required is no surprise, I don't think, to anyone. Yet, for some people I've found, even the suggestion that knowing ourselves plays an equally important role seems to set off alarms. Like, whoa, you're getting on dangerous ground there, and I'm going to stand my ground and state my case. You can shoot it down or try. But I think Jesus would say, knowing both God and ourselves are essential. Because there's no deep knowing of God without a deep knowing of ourselves. And you could flip that. There's no deep knowing of ourselves without a deep knowing of God. There's this interdependence, one on the other. Thomas Merton wrote, "There's only one problem on which all of my existence, my peace, and my happiness depend. To discover myself in discovering God." He goes on to say, "For if I find Him, I'll find myself. And if I find my true self, I find Him." So there's this interdependence. John Calvin wrote, "Nearly the whole sacred doctrine consists in these two parts, knowledge of God and ourselves." Yet, again, my concern is that while there's really, to my knowledge, never been any serious argument with what I'm describing is in fact an ancient Christian understanding, it really has, at least where I've been, it's been largely forgotten, perhaps ignored, and sometimes denied. We focused on knowing God and tended to ignore knowing ourselves. And if you're picking up on a little bit of passion, let me explain. It has to do with the consequences of this oversight, if that's what it is. I think the consequences are dreadful. I think of marriages betrayed. I think of families destroyed. Identities confused. Ministries shipwrecked. And just an endless number of people damaged. Focusing on knowing God while failing to know ourselves may in fact produce a good appearance, but it will always leave a gap between the appearance of things and reality. And if I begin to sound like I think I'm an authority on the subject, there's a reason. So let me hasten to explain. This is the part that I don't enjoy, and the part that I wouldn't want my mom to hear, but it's just the truth that has to be told. The truth is, had I died about 30 years ago running on empty, the title of this book is how I probably would have been remembered. The appearance of things, at the same time, was quite good. Great things were happening in my life. I was very engaged in ministry, and it was productive ministry. Fruit was being born, but late at night, while my wife and our children slept, I'd lie awake fearing that the cheese was slowly sliding off my cracker. While busily, in fact, in a driven way, attempting to enable others to know God, I was in the process of losing touch with God and myself. The lifestyle, again, that appeared to enhance my friendship with God had, in fact, become a terrible threat. I was obsessed, driven, with this idea that I need to be about helping others have the kind of relationship with God in themselves that I, in fact, had lost touch with. Wonder, how does that happen? Because I can promise you, this was not my intent. Fueling this nonstop pace, I later discovered were some deeply rooted and terribly distorted ideas about God and myself. So the critical turning point began when I realized that the most important thing in the world for me and for all of us is to deeply know God and ourselves. And that my true identity lies in who God is and who God says I am. Some of you might remember the story of Peggy Stewart, the professional golfer who got on a jet with friends in Florida years ago. A nice jet, one of those sleek jets. I don't travel long. And if we'd been, somewhere on the ground watching, we probably would have said to each other, now that right there, that'd be cool. That's the way to go, right there. Or if we'd been standing on the ground watching this jet just zing across the sky, we thought, wow, that's impressive. But we would have had no way of knowing then that there was something deadly wrong on the inside. If you haven't gotten the picture of what I described about my life 30 so years ago, maybe that helps. The rest of that story about Peggy Stewart and his friends is there was something deadly wrong on the inside of the plane. It continued to fly on autopilot until it exhausted all of its fuel, and then tragic crash. Everyone on board killed. Thank God. Before that happened in my life, there was an intervention, and we'll talk about the rest of that story a little later. So I'm told Nate, I do this, but it's not what I love, but I keep doing it. What I love is this would take a long time, but what I really love to do is this talk that I'm giving right now, I'd love first just to do this one-on-one. Maybe in a rocking chair with some sweet tea, right? and about now, I would ask you, enough about me, who are you? Who are you? I'm dying to know. Yeah, I got your name, but there's got to be more. Who are you? How do you answer that question? Now I understand that you read the situation. You assess who's asking the question and who's standing around and why do they want to know and all that kind of stuff. But when you're being really honest, when you're with someone you trust, how do you respond? What's your answer? Who are you? I like asking the question. I don't mind being asked. And often, the trends, in fact, seem to be, people talk about what they do. Well, I'm a pastor. Well, I'm a professor. I'm a student. Great. So who are you? Because I'm not suggesting, don't mean to, that what you do is not important. It's very important. It's probably what you spend most of your time about, but it doesn't really get at who you are, does it? It's kind of what you do. But it overlaps, and it does sometimes get kind of confusing, doesn't it? Sometimes, we talk about stuff we have. I don't mean in a gaudy way, not, talking about our stuff, but we talk about all the stuff that we have. We talk about the family we have. We talk about the friends we have. We talk about the education we have. We talk about the engagements, the involvements, the things that we have in common. We talk about the stuff we have. And then sometimes, I mean, honest, there are days when I say, I don't really know how to answer that question. Ask my wife. She'll tell you. Well, maybe that's not a good idea. Ask my kids. Let me give you the names of some friends. It's not always as easy as it seems. That's why talking with God about this does cut to the chase, because God knows. God knows who we are. It's a good conversation to have. Every now and then I say, will you remind me again? Because I think I've lost that ball in the weeds somewhere. Just a few more things here. I want to talk about how we distinguish the difference. And this is bouncing around a little bit, but that's just how I roll. Because I think this thing of knowing ourselves demands determining the difference, distinguishing the difference between the kind of knowledge that informs and the kind of knowledge that transforms. And here's the bottom line: not all knowledge is transformative. Some knowledge puffs us up. It makes us like an overfilled balloon, and we know what happens to overfilled balloons, don't we? Self-knowledge that's pursued apart from knowing our identity in relationship to God easily leads to self-inflation. If I kind of separate who I am from what God has to say about who I am, who God is, in fact, if I make it all about what I do or what I have or what other people say about me, that can kind of puff me up. Paul warns about that a number of times. 1 Corinthians 8, he says, some knowledge makes us feel important, but it's love that strengthens the body of Christ, right? It can not only lead to self-inflation, but it can lead to self-preoccupation. David Benner, in his book, The Gift of Being Yourself, writes, truly transformational knowledge is always personal. It's never merely objective, like what we do when we have what people say about us. It involves knowing of, not merely knowing about. And it's the kind of knowing that grows out of a relationship to the object that is known, whether that's God or oneself. So again, there's this interdependence that we're trying to lay a foundation for between knowing God and knowing ourselves. Neither one can proceed very far without the other. Paradoxically, we come to know God best not by looking at God exclusively, but by looking at God then at ourselves. And back and forth. Both God and self are most fully known in relationship to each other. And so I want to try and illustrate this, and then we're going to have a conversation. This is the part I was excited about getting to. Because I told some folks this morning, all I've talked about pretty much so far is concepts. I'm not even sure I understand what I was just talking about. But I think I'll know what I'm talking about here in a minute, because we're going to get a picture of what this means, okay? We're going to look at life, a real life. We're going to look at the spiritual journey of Peter. 3 years in a hurry, okay? And here's the starting point. Remember what Jesus said about Peter? Early on, what did he call it? A rock. Funny thing about that, the rock on which Jesus promised to build his church was, at the time, remarkably crumbling. Would you agree? But none of the disciples, in my view, showed more growth in their understanding of themselves and God during those 3 years of journeying with Jesus than Peter. I love the story. I love these pictures. You know, there's the initial encounter, and it's kind of given to us depending on which gospel you're reading in different ways. You know, sometimes we're told about how his brother Andrew met Jesus and then came back to Peter and said, I found him. You got to come meet him. He's the real deal. He's the one we've been waiting for. And then in Matthew, there's this account of Peter and Andrew together on the beach, and Jesus comes. I mean, maybe Matthew just didn't tell us the whole story, but the story we're told is he walks up and says, follow me. Just like, really? Like, we're kind of busy here. Where are we going? I mean, what are we going to do? How long are we going to be going? So let's just stop there and ask the question, what is it safe for us to assume Peter knew about Jesus at that point when Jesus said, follow me? We're not taking any great risks. What do you think it's safe to assume he knew about Jesus?
I think he knew he was a popular preacher.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's, I've been hearing about this guy. I mean, he's you know, hearing different things, but this guy, it's pretty obvious. This guy's got something going on here. Something going on. Again, if you look at the other account, his brother, you know, he seems to trust. He's already declared in other tellings of the story. Let's just, because we don't have much time, let's just move on and ask, what do you think Peter knew about himself? What do you think he knew? I mean, let's just imagine that we're just having fun right now, okay? So Jesus comes up and he says, hey, who are you? And I can just, knowing what I know about Peter, this is easy for me to imagine. I'm not saying this happened, okay? But don't you say it didn't, because neither of us know for sure, right? Okay. So he says, who are you? And I can just imagine Peter saying, really? I mean, is that a serious question? I mean, dude, smell my hands. I'm a fisherman, right? What do you think you knew other than I'm a fisherman? Jewish? Tell you where I live? Place. Maybe he would have said, well, if you really want to know, I have a reputation for being hot-headed. I can go off. They say I'm impulsive. I just think they're slow to act. If he was having a really deep, honest moment, Peter might say, I long for the promised one. I mean, we're taking it in the hiney and on the chin every other way. These Romans, man, they're making life hard for us. I'm just begging God, send the Messiah. He may have said that. You may have known that longing. You think it's likely that he would have known much about the depth of his fear, the magnitude of his pride? Chances, I think, are good, not so much. And that for this very reason. Because I think those levels of knowing oneself require, well, what's getting ready to happen in Peter's life. think that's part of the reason Jesus said, come on, follow me. I want you to know me, but I want you to know you. Come on. So let's fast forward. And we're really doing that. Okay, so Jesus and Peter and the rest of the guys been hanging out for a while, and they spent a day. Some phenomenal things have happened. I mean, Peter has watched people who just had no hope healed, twisted hearts, straightened eyes, blind, able to see. I mean, just holy moly, are you serious? I mean, they've witnessed that, and then at the end of the day, Jesus says, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll wrap things up here. You guys hop on the boat, head to the other side, and I'll catch up with you. So they're out there in the middle of the lake. I mean, keep in mind, perspective here, context. They've watched this all day long. Now they're out in the middle of the lake. It's dark. Storm blows up, and they're fighting a storm. I mean, they're fighting for their life, and they look off in the distance, and as if they don't already have enough trouble, they see a ghost, or what they think is a ghost. And they start freaking out, and you know the rest of that story. If it's really you, call me. I'll get out of this boat. I've been wanting to get out of this boat for a while now. So let's talk with Peter after he spent some time with Jesus and seen these miracles occur, and he's walked on the water, and you ask him, tell me about Jesus. What do you think he'd say that day? Do you think you get the same answer that you would have gotten the time before? What kind of answer do you get now? I mean, he's just slobbering. He's so enthused, so excited, so anxious to tell. This man, wow. I mean, you just have to see for yourself. What do you think he'd say about himself? You think he's learned a thing or two about himself? What's he learned? I think he talked about his fear. You know, I've learned some things about me. I'm telling you, I got out of the boat because I was scared to death. I figured I'm going to die trying to live, and if it's him, I've got a better chance walking on water than staying in this boat. I mean, who knows? But I think he would have likely talked about his fear. You think he would have talked about his pride and then? Hey guys, I mean, it was really cool. I was feeling it walking on the water, but boy, when I sang, that was embarrassing. And he didn't let me die. I'm pretty sure, I think they wrote that. So we're jumping ahead again. John 13, if you want to look these up later. They're having dinner, and the mood changes while they're dining. And Jesus stands up, and he gets a towel, lays in the water, and he starts going around washing their feet. And when he gets to Peter, what's Peter's reaction? No, you're not doing that. Yeah, I can't. No, we won't have any of that. And then Jesus responds with, hey, you gotta let me do this. If you're gonna have anything to do with me, oh well, if those are the conditions, then I'll let me. Don't stop with the feet. Just get. I want the full works. Well, what do you think he would say about his knowledge of God and himself like that? Boy, a lot's happened in 3 years. I think he would speak with such confidence and conviction about this lover. And I've seen this man love people who are totally undeserving. I'd be one. I think he would talk with an intensity of his belief in Jesus as Messiah. And then remember, Jesus shocks Peter by predicting that he's going to deny him. But before breakfast the next morning, this is going to happen 3 times. And in utter disbelief and shock, it's just apparent that, Peter is scandalized that how could you not recognize my love, my devotion, my heroic courage, the strength of my convictions? You see, he's still not fully in touch with himself, is he? It's interesting to me that it's still easier for Peter to trust himself than to trust Jesus. Takes a crook to catch one. He still hasn't encountered the enormity of his pride or the extent of his fear, but he's getting ready to. So we look in on Peter after it happens, after this dreadful denial 3 times. How do we find him? I think we find him self-absorbed, consumed in regret, sadness, grief. Really, in a short span of time, he's been confronted with some truth about himself, and sometimes it's what keeps us from knowing ourselves, because we know there's skeletons in that closet, so let's just not go there. He's confronted with his lack of courage, his treasonous lack of loyalty, the intense depth of his desire for safety and his fear. He's kind of hit bottom, I think. He has encountered his weakest, most despicable self. I suspect that he's been overwhelmed with self-hatred by now, which, by the way, is the greatest enemy of the spiritual life. He's probably now haunted by the memory of what he said when he threw all his buddies under the bus and said, even if every one of them deserts you, I never will. You can count on me. So after Jesus' death, what is the guy to do? He goes back to what he'd been doing before. He goes back to fishing. You know the story. After a night of catching nothing, this unknown guy on the shore asks what they caught, and then has the audacity to suggest that the simple remedy is to just drop the net on the other side of the boat, right? And when they do, nets fill up. And just like those 2 on the road to Emmaus, Peter kind of wakes up. He realizes who it is. He dives in and swims the shore. And then, mirroring the pattern of his denials, Jesus asked him 3 times if he loved him more than the others. He gives Peter 3 times to declare his love, 1 for each denial, if you will. Then his response is in kind to repeat his invitation for Peter to follow. I think in a way, Jesus is saying, Peter, I've known this about you the whole time. I mean, I knew it when I said you're the rock. Peter, you're getting it, man. You're finding out finally that I was right. You are the rock, man. You are the rock. What do you think Peter tells now is knowing himself and God? I think he'd say, I've been a son of God. I graduated. I came from a good Jewish family. I didn't really know God. I knew a lot of stuff about Him. But I've been with Him. I've experienced life together. And in my knowing Him personally, I bumped into me. I'm so amazed by His mercy, His grace, His love. What had been objective information is now deeply personal. It's real. And it's a beautiful picture to me of what I hope you see happening in your life. What I see happening in mine. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about who I thought I was. And who I amply proved I wasn't. I'm not. But honestly, at 65, I'm standing here in front of you, I'm still trying to know me as well as God does. And how that's working its way out is in my continuing to look to Him. And as I know more of who He is in an experiential way, I find myself knowing me. So I've probably left you with lots of questions by now, and maybe they too. So why don't you come on up here? We'll see what happens.
We'll see. So this idea that to know God really then means to learn about myself and who I am. And then this is all part of the process of my own formation and who I'm becoming. What about when I begin to learn about myself? I don't like what I find. I'm sure Peter was not particularly thrilled with what he learned.
I think that's a really good thing. It's not fun. It doesn't feel good, but I think that I say it's a really good thing because it's happened enough times that I've also had the experience of discovering what's beyond it, which is it's worth passing through that dark stuff to get to who I really am, and that's where the good news kicks in, because I was really working hard some of the time to be a great person, but didn't really believe I was. And having this darkness exposed, having the other side of it, I realized, oh really? I really am a great guy. I really am. I'm not perfect, but I'm real.
Give me the picture of your grandfather's boat. The work he had to do.
Yeah. It was not a boat, by the way.
A yacht.
It was a yacht. Thank you. It was a honking big boat. It was 57 feet. And I told some folks this morning I spent most of my adolescence underneath it. Not when it was in water. He put it on a dry dock. And I'd get underneath it with a putty knife and I'd scrape these barnacles off these things that weren't a part of the boat. They didn't belong there. they were a drag. He said, this thing's going to really get up and go when you finish. Why don't you hurry up so we can put her back in the water and have some fun? Scrape it. Not a part of the boat. They'd attached themselves. And I think that's what happens. We have these attachments. We think we need to add this. We think we need to be that. And we wind up with all these things kind of stuck to us that aren't really who we are. It's who we think we need to be, how we think we need to look. And that's why it feels so good when you get with people and you feel like, I can knock that off.
That's good. We're all aware of people who lack self-awareness and the damage, cruelty, they can run over others completely unaware of themselves. Yet discovering ourselves in our life with God. This isn't about selfishness. How so?
Yeah, I think this is like 101 right here, folks. Whose image were we created in the first place? We're created in the image of God. Have you ever met anyone more selfless than God? More willing to sacrifice? I mean, Jesus laid his life down for his friends. And so it's not selfish. It really turns us into selfless in beautiful ways. I mean, doesn't it feel good when you, in a way, forget yourself and you find yourself caring more for other people than you do for yourself? I mean, that just feels so alive. That's what's happening.
Yeah. And so in a sense, what you're talking about is living into all that God has for you. And that your true self is this picture of you that, with much beauty, selfless.
I think it makes it easier for me to understand, because one of the great struggles in my life was, how could God love me? I'm such a any naughty word you can think of. How could God love me? Does God have no discernment whatsoever? And I think that, who God was loving through Jesus in Peter when he said, "You're the rock," was who he really was. And so I hear God sometimes say, "Phil, you're going to really love you when you meet you. Because that's the one I love, the one you really are."
And of course, this isn't a position to where then we find ourselves, really okay people independent from God. Quite the opposite.
Yeah, in fact, I can fake it without anyone's help. I don't need God or anyone to pretend. I can't be real without your help. Without your help. Certainly without the help of the one who created me. I become very needy.
And that's a good thing.
A very good thing. Yeah.
Almost a position of strength.
Yeah, this weird strength that comes out of weakness.
Yeah, that sounds kind of biblical.
It sounds funny. But remember what originality is.
Forgetting the source.
Yes.
I had a friend. It's a great lie. I forget lots of times. I had a friend who gave this description of the narrowing path that Jesus talked about. This movement into kingdom life here and now. And I actually think, maybe as a side note, I mean, we could very much bring that in. The kingdom here and now is us being honest, being real, living into our true selves, knit together, woven in life with God. And she went on to talk about this narrowing gate that few enter through, this squeezing. And she gave this picture that the further we go, the deeper in we go, the more narrow it becomes. And then this beautiful picture that's quite disturbing of a toothpaste tube. And that when you squeeze it, the more you squeeze it, all this stuff comes out, right? And then the way she carried it on was this, that we then are confronted with ourselves. And those things in there. And God in His love allows us to wrestle through like Peter did.
I think it's difficult. I guess going back to the bottom of my Papa's boat, I scraped these barnacles, crud, stuff that was attached, and it just kind of goes splat on the ground. Wasn't pretty. And that's kind of how it feels, how it looks some days. But it's bearable when you get perspective on it. That's not me. I thought I needed it to be. Some of it I thought I wanted it to be. I remember telling me one day, I'd gotten a whole side, one side of the bottom of the yacht straight. And he said, you know what would happen if we put that puppy in the water right now? We'd have the hardest time steering. It would be pulling because it'd have all this drag on one side, and it would be like the bottom of the boat saying, hey, I want to go this way. And the other house saying, no, we got to go this way. And there's so I love this image of how it's just freedom. Because I was sitting here a few minutes ago thinking about how many people I used to be. Remember the gathering in Pontiac, and Jesus asked him, what's your name? And he says, you gotta be kidding. What's my name? I'm Legion. And I got so many names. You talk about lots of hats. I'm crazy. I'm so crazy. And I was that way. In high school, I had all these sets of friends, and I had to keep reminding myself which group I was with, so I could know how to act. And guys, I just want to sigh when I think about how nice it would be to go through a whole day just being the same person.
It's a lot easier to be the people God created us to be than who we think others want us to be.
It's easier, harder,
Painful.
frightening. I mean, this seems to be working. It's driving me crazy, but it's gaining me some of the things I do have friends. And will anyone like me?
You started with a good question for us. Who are you? Phil? Who are you?
I'm Phil, the one that Jesus loves. That's the truest thing I know. I mean, I keep going. I'd work in there, Lucy's husband, because I want to make sure that. And I'm your friend. I mean, that's really freedom. I need you to be. I realized if I lose you and some others, I might lose me somehow. I might start reverting back to trying to recreate myself.
So living into our true selves in life with God. There's a communal sense in that we're in this together and helping each other walk into that.
I would love to ask Peter, so when he said, "You're the rock," what were you thinking? Because my mama used to make me crazy. Because I thought she was. She'd pick me like this. And she would say, "There's greatness in you. You're a sweet boy." And she'd say that sometimes when I've been sweet, and sometimes when I had not been so sweet. And it was like she's calling me out, or speaking that in, or something.
So as there's something empowering about that, isn't it? That we can help each other in that.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you believe it, maybe someday I will.
And as we, go deeper and deeper into some of this, and we wrestle through some of the barnacle scraping and such, what does it then change in terms of your relationships, your work life, and your interactions with God?
That side that I mentioned, I think it's there's a difference. I mean, it's kind of like, we can relax now, because it can't be that hard just to be yourself. I mean, we were talking about cars. A few minutes ago, I got this new car, and I really like it. It's working for me. It's got some neat little bells and whistles, and it just knows how to be what it is. And I'd like to think I'm more than a car, but I'd like to catch up with mine in terms of just being what I am. I'm feeling the pressure to be a truck, or an airplane, or a rocket ship. It's just a car, and seems content. That's really goofy, but
it is. It works, though. It works. And essentially, you're talking too about being free from the heavy burden, the enslavement of others' approval, and measuring up to people pleasing and all that sort of thing, which is such a soul-crushing thing for many.
I think this is universal, or maybe it's just me. But I remember at a very, very early age trying to figure out what am I to do to get these people like me. And not just like me. Love me. To be for me. Not just be with me, but to be for me. What am I to do? And I kept coming up with more and more answers. And it's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. This is tiring. This is hard. Because some of this is not natural to me. I'm having to fake it. And so to be in a place, I'll tell the story I was telling you last night about it. So I was speaking to this group a few weeks ago, and I'm talking about the difference I feel sometimes between when I'm feeling the pressure to perform and be something that I'm not. And so I was affirming this group kind of the way I was to you, because I didn't say this a few minutes ago, but I have felt a freedom here in the last few days just to be me. Used to not being invited back, so I just enjoy it as long as it lasts. And so I had spoken to this group, and I thanked them for helping me to feel the freedom just to be me. And after talking for a while, we took a break, and my host ran up and said, "Your zipper's been down the whole time." And the funny thing, I didn't mention this last night. The night before, in preparation for this talk I was giving, I had made a list of some of my false selves, worst fears. And one of my all-time greatest fears is looking stupid. I just don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to be humiliated. And I was shaped that way by an event, an experience in the 8th grade. I I dare say her name, glorious goddess, this goddess, sat next to me. And I'm wearing, it just happens, I was wearing a navy blue sweater, and I was bored out of my gourd. And I was doing, the only thing I could think of, I was picking lint off my sweater. And you know the feeling you get when you tell somebody is watching you? And I looked, and Lori was not only just gazing at me, it was kind of like, it was I'm going to say it looked adoring to me. And she takes out a piece of paper and starts writing a note. She checks the teacher's hands it to me, and I open it. And I'll never forget this. She said, "Dear Phil," and she knows my name. I had no idea. She spelled it right, F-I-L. I'm in love. And she said, "You're the neatest guy I know." She knows me. And I just decided I'll be neat for the rest of my life. That seems to be working. So while he's telling me my zipper's down, I am so ADD, I'm sorry. He's telling me my zipper's down. Somebody else is leaving a note on the podium, zipper down. And so everybody comes back from the break and I said, guess what? My zipper was down. And you all knew it, didn't you? I thought you were my friends, right? But I'm going to tell you, this is really the truth. And for me, this is some kind of a celebration. I don't care. I mean, I do. As soon as I was told, I pulled it up, but I wasn't embarrassed. I mean, it's just an honest, stupid kind of thing. Not the first time. But it didn't matter. I wouldn't play with this crowd. I kind of already knew they liked me.
But there's something about being rooted in knowing who you are with God that gives you that freedom to run around and play that.
It didn't mean I'm stupid. It just meant I made a mistake. Overlooked something. Okay.
I have another question. Yeah. Self-hatred is the greatest enemy of the spiritual life. Can you unpack that a little?
I'm a dad. I love my kids. Can't stand it. They turn on themselves. I can't stand it. It's my worst nightmare. I mean, don't you be mean to. I'll get you. But the worst thing in the world is for me to see them turn on themselves. If I'm that way, because I'm not going for Daddy of the Year award, God's got to know something. I just think it just breaks. That's hard for us to get down on ourselves. It fractures. It puts up barriers, walls. I can tell you, if that had been my undoing when I found my zipper down, it would have kind of ruined the rest of the event for me. I would have been subconscious. I would have stopped enjoying myself. And so it just robs us of the freedom. It's for freedom that we've been set free. Don't let these things define you. It's not who you are. Peter, you're not a loser. You're growing. You're a little faith. I mean, some people think that's a put down. I'd love for Jesus to call me a little faith. I mean, at least I got some, right? And I think that's what Jesus is saying to Peter. Dude, it's growing. You have none.
And the irony here is, I mean, you made a comment in the previous session about your desire to sin diminishes. This freedom does not then move you towards a life of destruction.
And that's what any attempt to be anything other than who we are. And we do lots of obviously self-destructive things. But some things are not so obvious. I mean, did you hear me? I was doing really good things that were very self-destructive, and really some of the drive, some of the energy came out of this self-loathing, this self-hatred. If you want to be loved, make yourself loved.
Perform. Do all the right things. Yeah. Well, I love how in your books that you really unpack how wrapped up we can get in this performance when we're rotting on the inside.
Yeah, I think of it this way. Any good thing that interferes with that deep knowing of God and ourselves is really a bad thing. It's as bad as any bad thing.
Say that one more time.
Any thing that has the appearance of a good thing, that at the same time interferes with that deep knowing of ourselves or deep knowing of God. In other words, I have to do this good thing for me to be good or for God to recognize me as good. Anything that interferes with the truth is a bad thing. It's as bad as any bad thing. And I've learned that way.
Yeah, this is very helpful. One last comment. The people I've met in life who really seem to kind of get what following Jesus is about. Those that levitate at night. The saints of sort. They seem to me to be at great ease with themselves, great ease with others.
I think at times, I also think at times deeply distressed and troubled. I want to grab something.
We're gonna wrap up and go for it.
Where is it? Maybe I'll open it. You got to come back. There's that insecurity. I was going to read something that came out of Bonhoeffer's, and he's a saint. What courage, what faith, what knowing God, what knowing himself. But he struggled. Days before he was martyred, he's wrestling with who am I really? And it gives me great hope. If he could still be struggling, then I can go back to my room tonight. If I wind up in a little bit of a tussle, then at least he can company.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for this book. Appreciate it. All right. Father, would you begin to paint a picture for us about who we are, who you made? Would you begin to show us all the beauty in your work? Would you give us the courage to face ourselves, face some of the barnacles that have attached? Draw us deeper into life with you. May we be people that do not get lost in the distress, but learn to be at ease with you, ourselves, and others. In Jesus' name. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate it.